Creating the Perfect Company from the organizational experts, Multiview Incorporated. This content is based on MBI's work with over 1,300 organizations, extracting 989 data elements with 922 cross-calculations over 27 years on a monthly basis, and then systematizing the operational success patterns of the 90th percentile. Our intent is to get beyond the brag and the boast, and simply share insights from our experience without manipulation or coercion to sell anything, except helpful ideas. These messages range from intimate recordings from the Awakened Forest to concerts, national conferences, and broadcasts.
Operating as an integrated, coherent whole, where all parts of the organization work together. This is probably something that all CEOs and founders of organizations aspire to. And it makes sense. You know, we want to, believe that everybody in the organization is unified and moving in the direction. It's much more difficult than that. Is that not true? And so, again, with all our work, with all of this 1,300 or so organizations and training all these leaders, we've picked up a lot of things, I'll say, through the years that have been just groundbreaking regarding how to actually do this. And I'll just say this. When I was forming Multiview, I'm a system analyst. I was a musician and had great success in music and all that. And then, of course, I had to reinvent my life after I breached my 6-year contract. And I had to reinvent myself, so I became a computer programmer and then the CPA and all that. But when I was programming compensation systems, so I became a system analyst, really directing programs. They found out I kind of had a talent for doing that for customer service and taking care of, clients, of course, but also communicating with programmers what needed to be done and all this. And I'll just say this, that system helped me tremendously, identifying the critical path, realizing that not all events are linear, that we could have all kinds of initiatives happening at the same time, Gantt charts, what have you. Yeah, that led to a lot of this idea of operating as this integrated, coherent whole. Obviously, all my time in nature. Also, I think I heard Gerber and some different people talking about this, and I go, wow, that is a marvelous way to look at things. And then taking that higher intelligence of taking the abstract, which would be nature, and saying, well, how does nature work? And what patterns can we observe? Again, patterns we think of as intelligent. And then bringing those patterns and then really transposing them onto an organizational context and trying to really get the organization to work as this system of mutual reliance, where it's much like a natural system that if you break your arm or whatever, all parts react to protect and help in the defective area rather than being oblivious to it and just going on, well, it's just about, the right leg today, and then, hey, today it's just about the lungs, and I'm just thinking about me. No, natural systems don't work like that. And so we should aspire to emulate that to a large extent, and we have found that you can indeed do this. And so when we talk about operating as an integrated, coherent company, in a nutshell, we might kind of language it like this: for marketing to promise exactly what operations can actually do, and for operations to do exactly what marketing has promised, and for indirect and support areas to make sure that marketing and operations have everything they need to be successful. It might be just as simple as that. So this gets us to the definition of the MVI, or the Multiview Incorporated model. And of course, when we formed the organization. We were primarily system analysts and CPAs, very good with the numbers and all that. But we soon found that if you really want to move the numbers, if you want to be truly effective, you've got to understand the realities of human behavior. And so that's really where our focus has really went for the last 20 some odd years. And so the model is more than just operating by percentages of net revenue rather than some kind of static budget. Static budgets are great for managing projects with limited duration, but they fail miserably for monitoring really ongoing operations. You need dynamic feedback, and that's really what the model does. And so we teach organizations really how to simplify things on all levels of the organization, and people learn to live within their percentages of net revenue. So really, MBI is really a quality program, but it takes in both the quality aspects and perfect interactions, perfect phone interactions, perfect visits, perfect products, all this, of course, perfect meaning to the standards of the organization. And of course, as a byproduct, or I should say a natural byproduct of doing quality, you have phenomenal economics as well, but as a natural byproduct of doing purpose well. So let's put a definition around the, quote, MBI model. It is the creation of a high-quality, predictable experience. All these words have great meaning. Of course, the model itself indicates intention, design. Most organizations are fairly organic. Their models, they have models. They've usually evolved over time, but I question whether they're great. Most of them fall in what? The 50th percentile, because that's the best they know how to do. If they knew how to do better, they'd be doing it. So the model is the creation. We are all in the act of creation all the time. Every time the phone rings at your company, you're creating a feeling. Every time you have a personal interaction, you're creating a feeling. Every time someone picks up one of your materials or your products, are they feeling quality? But you're creating a feeling. So we're constantly in the creation business of what? High quality. If people don't want to aspire to high quality, go work for bottom feeder organization down the river. Hey, we're the milquetoast organization. We only do mediocre work. Forget it. Everybody wants to aspire to do something great. High quality. Okay, so the model is the creation of a high quality, predictable, and predictable is another important word. Why? Because in business, whether we're selling a service or a product, we are selling certainty. And we've got manuals on human behavior and selling certainty, but that's what people want. And what kind of certainty or predictability? The experience, the feelings. So the model is the creation of a high-quality, predictable experience, or you could substitute the word feeling, because human behavior is guided by emotions and feelings. We think we're logical, but normally purchase decisions are made on a feeling level first and are secondarily supported by our intellectual justifications. Even if we think we're a smart guy or a smart gal and we gather all the facts, you're never going to have all the facts. There's going to be this element of the external world that you're going to have to dance with or interact with, which brings in probability and all that. So you can do your best to gather all your data and all that, be the smart guy, but then you end up making a snap decision based on your gut, your feeling, and then on your drive home, that was a good reason because this, and it's a long-term store of value, and we can resell it later on if it goes bad. We can do whatever your rationale is, but that's just the way human beings work, and probably anybody listening to this can identify with making a decision and then the drive home intellectually justifying it. So emotions and feelings are at the foundation, I'll say, of Multiview, and that's why we have the patient chair and all this. And when we formed the company years ago, we knew that we were going to get thousands of phone calls from companies all over the country of all kinds of different sizes. Some have 100 employees, some have 13,000. And that experience had to be great. We had to build it on the big R, or should I say relationship. And that built such a solid company where the brand loyalty was so great. I remember people would try to buy us and said, well, how long does your typical customer last? And, we'd kind of scratch our head and go, well, they really don't go away. We might lose one or two a year. And that's usually because of a merger or something outside their control where they're absorbed by something. But it's never due to you screwed up here or service failures or complaints. It's always, y'all are great. Again, our standards are in a place where, for example, the longest we've ever went with a phone call not being answered by a real person, not an automated system, but a real person, a competently trained person, within 3 rings. The longest we've ever went is 4.5 years. Our average is really probably about 2.5 to 3 years. Whereas a lot of organizations, they have screw-ups and service failures and complaints every day, and they think that's normal. I think we have to be very careful what we tolerate as leaders. All I know is if there's service failures and screw-ups, I'm going to rip somebody's lungs out. Of course, I'll do it in the nicest way possible, but there's going to be pain. You could also, let's add another definition. The model is the creation or design of a company culture that simultaneously balances purpose and financial realities to create a sustainable, world-class experience. Okay, so again, this idea of intention, you're designing your culture, and we'll have other messages that will go into that deeper, that simultaneously balances purpose and financial realities. And I always elevate purpose higher than financial realities, because if we do a great job at our purpose, normally, again, this natural byproduct of incredible economics, hundreds of percent above the 50th percentile, are usually achieved as a result of doing quality. Steve Jobs, I remember, made an incredible statement that I remember, that the difference between Apple, which at that time was the most valuable company on the planet, which he turned it around from almost bankrupt, is that we were focused on creating art. We were focused on creating this high-value purpose, and the money was secondary. Whereas if you switch that around and we're going for the money, we're all going to get rich doing this, and then the purpose is down here, that just doesn't have the juice. That is not the compelling vision that most people that are going to be employed in that enterprise are going to get behind. It will surely motivate the few greedy, but not all the front lines, the people in the trenches, the people that you got to learn to love and take care of. So we're building this integrated, coherent company. And we're going to focus more on system solutions rather than people solutions. A lot of people, they try to hire this winner, this change agent that's going to make our life better. And though that's partially true that can happen, most of our success is going to be structurally dictated by our systems and processes. And being smart about designing these. What kind of structures and processes are you talking about, Andrew? Well, I'm talking about all the ways that you interact with your customers. Perfect phone interactions, perfect visit designs, perfect manuals, perfect products. This revolutionary levels of quality. You know, your training systems, your compensation systems, those are probably the two killer of killers, because your people systems are so important, because all of your quality flows out of you as a result of the quality of your people. And as we say, your quality is no more or less than the quality of your people system. Notice I didn't say your quality is no more or less than the quality of your people, though that's true too. Focusing more on the quality of your system rather than the people. And your compensation systems are the other key system, because as we go into this topic a little bit more, we'll realize that this is how we're going to wire all of our different locations, sites, indirect and supportive departments together to be this really integrated whole. Okay? As far as we know, after 27 years of doing this and working with hundreds and hundreds of companies, the only known or practical means that you wire all of your departments, your regions, your sites, your locations, your product lines together is through your compensation system, where it's designed to incentivize harmony and internal delight. Again, internal delight first, because why? Because that's what flows out to the customers. But it starts with an inside job. You know, just like this natural body system, when the body system's sick on whatever level, you just can't function the way that you need to. But your compensation is equivalent to blood or air in a human system. It's the flowing thing that circulates all through. It's almost a communication mechanism. And compensation provides this powerful communication of each area's duty for maintaining really the health and the welfare of the whole. So your compensation system is this great communicator. Your compensation is perhaps your greatest teacher, in that people look at their paychecks and go, whoa, that worked out. I think I'll do more of that. Ooh, that didn't work out. I think I'll do less of that. And probably most importantly, it should be designed to do your accountability for you. This is what Multiview espouses. Design your compensation system to do accountability for you, to do the heavy lifting. And why is that? It's because of the truth. After training over 10,000 leaders, your leaders, your managers will not effectively hold their people accountable. I'm going to let that set in. Your leaders, your managers are not going to effectively hold people accountable. They're going to delay the pain when it needs to be administered. When someone's not doing the standards or the vows of the organization, it's like, oh, I don't want to have that meeting today. It's going to be a rough day. They delay. And all such delays cause an extension of the non-standard or the sub-performance. And there's the breakdown. So the compensation system is really your key, because you can sensitize all of your operational systems. In healthcare, it's your EMR. It also would include your general ledger or your financial systems, where they can be sensitized to detect non-standard performance. You still need managers, of course, and leaders to observe the different behavioral standards of the organizations, but those that can be quantified can be extracted and monitored from your different systems by sensitizing them. So with this said, you want your comp system to do the accountability for you. And this really necessitates having four things: first of all, clear standards. Most organizations, you can say, what are your standards? Well, I don't know, and so thus people don't even know what quality really looks like. And these standards really need to be for every area, discipline, department, site, location, region. You want to have as few standards as possible, of course, too, because the more standards you have, the more you complicate everything, and it exponentially increases things. So you want to have things as uniform as you can. But you have to have standards. That's really the starting point for so many organizations, and it's one of the places where we really excel, just getting down to the core, because people will tend to overthink things, and they'll get in meetings that or form a committee, God help us, which is, basically constipation at an epic level. That's all the best ideas are neutered down, and there's all these concessions made to weaker members and voices and whatever. And that guy that's sitting in the back that's kind of quiet, that has the brilliant idea, that's quiet, of course, and he's ignored. So we help people get clear with their standards, get that picture of the results that they really want for every area, discipline, department, location, all that. 2, when you have the comp system do accountability, you also have to have effective training systems to communicate the standards and the result picture that you're trying to get. And you want to train people. We use a system called System 7. In Six Sigma, it would be called intensive training. But you want to train people to the point where it's impossible for any employee to not know the standards or the results you're after. Just where it's binary. Either people can do the job or not. And that makes things easier. When you train people to curve, or you allow really any deviation, you create all these holes, or I'll say knowledge deficits. And if you test people even to a 90% pass level in however you evaluate your employees, well, even for 100 employees, your screw-up factor is exponentially compounded. You don't know who knows what or doesn't know what. Okay, 3, we need a means of measurement. Things that are easy to look at and digest, as uncomplicated as possible. And this is where we simplify usually measurements, since we're great at measuring. We find those critical measurements, because we found if you measure the critical measurements, it may satisfy 50 other measurements. And so just by doing the one well, it satisfies all these other requirements. And the 4th thing, of course, regarding accountability in your compensation system is the alignment of the compensation system with the standards and results. So all of these things connected help us create this integrated whole. Again, if people are not doing the results or the standards that are needed, they need to feel pain, just like, again, a body system, because it's unhealthy for any department, organization, site, whatever, to believe that they are separate. We call this siloing. And as long as they think they can operate independently from the rest of the world, from the other service lines or whatever, it's not healthy for the whole. In healthcare, obviously, we work a lot in the post-acute. Not that we can't work all over. We work for the investment firms, since we're pretty good with money. Anything that involves customer service, fast food, what have you. But so if you have people camping out in one service line, like a home health or whatever, well, that may be good for a time, but if they decline, then you want to get them into something else, maybe hospice or whatever. So you want to keep everything connected, because it's unhealthy for one department or site or whatever to believe that they are separate, or, as we say, silo from others. And so if you have multiple service lines and let's say it's complementary products, So there might be a level that you take clients where you get them set up, you get their equipment set up, or in healthcare, they're at a certain status where we're seeking cure or to get better. But then there's a certain point where you don't want them to stay there. It's not good for them. It's not good for the organization. And so they need to be transferred to the next department, let's say in healthcare, to get that here. Or once the machines are set up, we need to transfer over to the ops team or whatever your system or flow is from your different service lines. Well, how do you do that? You do that through your financial incentives, that if it's not done within a certain period of time, if this happens by this dates are great for doing this. Here is the negative financial consequence for not doing this. You always have to, of course, have plenty of upside in a good comp system, but you definitely have to provide the disincentive to cross the line and not get clients really through your system as needed. And let me say this about intercompany, interdepartment issues. They are going to be the toughest issues that you face as a leader or as a founder of your organization. It's not so much the battle with the external world so much. It's, here we got this division doing this, and then we've got this service line doing this, and then we got our indirects, we got our IT, HR, compliance, and you'll just find that there'll be all these little empires that will form, and of course they're looking for their own self-interest. And again, that is exactly what we're trying to defeat by making this integrated, coherent organization where they all pull together. That's why through the comp system there has to be, again, where there's some kind of shared benefit for when the organization wins by providing the function at the assigned cost, not 1 penny above that. You go 1 penny above it, then 10, 20% of the salary of the leader or that whole team is gone. But then if you beat your model or your percentage, you get a large portion of that you can distribute among your team. It's got to be set up somewhat in a proportional basis in order to really integrate it. And that's really key. And that's why budgets and things like that just are not effective, because they don't flex or move with reality. Let me just say this. The problem with budgets, and I'm not going to go into my big talk about that, is that they confuse things because you're dealing with two different variables. You have a volume variable and you have an efficiency variable, and you cannot tell the difference between the two in a static budget. There's all kinds of other horrific things that happen in a static budget. Usually there's budgetary slack built in. There's all kinds of padding going on and what have you. People actually think they can spend the entirety of the budget. All these things that are not healthy. Whereas when you strip away the volume variance and make something that's much more flexible, that goes up and down with fluctuations of revenue, well, at that point, it becomes an efficiency variance. So you're just saying, with the revenue that we have, how well are we managing in proportion to that allotted to us? And so there's the cost question. Are we doing it for the cost that's been assigned or engineered for our area? And then the secondary question is the quality question. Is the function being done to the standards of the organization? Now let's talk about the organizational chart. Most people have the pyramid scheme, I'll call it. Basically, you have the pyramid with the CEO, the head honcho on the top, and then it cascades down to the peon levels. And then the slightly more enlightened version is the upside-down pyramid scheme with the CEO in the bottom. We call this servant leadership, and that's slightly more elevated and calibrates a little higher on the scale of consciousness. But we're going to share with you the MVI organizational chart. And I was paid by this large Wall Street company tremendous money to come up with this new company design, since we have a knack for doing unique things that actually work. And we came up with this very different looking organizational chart. So let's take a look at it. And if you can get on our website you can get a copy and see what this looks like. But at the top of the chart, rather than it being the CEO or whatever, the boss, as we call it, are our clients, our customers. They will write every paycheck we will ever receive, and they will discharge us if they're displeased. So that's really the top of everyone's org chart. I think you can also add the sovereign of this universe. You can add God at the top if you want to. But that boss better be there. That actually writes the check. Okay, then below that, frontline employees, our machine operators, our clinicians, all that, the people that are actually providing the service, our technicians. And then we come down to the third level, which is our site, our location, our team managers. And this is the supercharged area that we're going to put tremendous focus on as you listen to more and more of these messages. We'll talk about creating extraordinary leaders and extraordinary managers. And this really comes from, again, my good friend Norman, when we were building that world-class organization, is he read in Gallup that 70% of the development, morale, and retention of an employee comes from the relationship of the immediate manager with the employee. Let's focus on that. And we did, and that's how we won the award. Obviously, we were completely systemic and organized about how we went about constructing and developing our business. But we weren't focusing on frontline employees. And that's a mistake that we see so many people. Why? Because of that 70% principle. Again, I'll say it again. 70% of the development, morale, and retention of frontline staff come from the relationship with the immediate manager. These need to be inspirational folks. They need to be able to change lives. They need to be real leaders. And so that's where we put our eggs, our effort, and put laser beam focus. And it paid off like crazy. And for any company that MVI helps manage or partner with or do magic engagements, this is what we do when we teach people how to do that. Okay, then the next level is a singular level with one person, the COO. The COO actually runs the company because we have the CEO elsewhere. So here we've got somebody in a senior leadership position who's actually learning the ropes of how to run things. And they usually come with a great degree of talent, usually experience and whatever, but they're really your number two, and we need this for redundancy purposes. And then in the center, in the great big center, which could be a heart, a big circle, whatever, in your org chart, is people development. Because at the heart of any MVI model company is the idea that we are a teaching organization, that we are an empowering organization. And as all quality is going to come from the quality of our people system, this is where we really need to put the bullseye. And so in people development, this is where you're going to find where the CEO spends most of their time. And we have proportions of time and that they would spend. Obviously, they're doing their CEO stuff, but they're really focusing and being that real leader. This is where the CFO would be doing a lot of teaching, as well as some of your other key operational people, your top teachers, your top topical experts. Again, passing off this expertise to the people that run your company and work in it. And so that's a great deviation for most organizations. But becoming a teaching or empowering organization, I can't tell you how much good that will do for human beings. It provides incredible inspiration. People learn how to provide customer delight, how to be much more sensitive and conscious to the feelings of other people, and just how they go about not only their work, but their lives. This is amazing. And most organizations, you walk into their organizational space and You cross the threshold and it's beige. It's the color of light turds. And then I say, okay, well, let me see your tests. Oh, well, we don't test really. Really? Is this a joke? What about your position observation? What about your, and they just don't have anything put together. And then they wonder why they're 50th percentile. Well, there you go. Then at the bottom of the org chart is supporting services. And this is really where you find all your indirect functions. This is where you find HR, compliance, finance, IT, marketing. Even the board of directors would be down in this area. If we're not-for-profit, you might find your development down there. But they are supporting really everything that's above it. Sometimes, you see the board of directors at the top, and really, no, they need to view themselves as, how can we be of service and helpful to support all those people on the front lines that are actually making this business happen. And then to complete the org chart, you have this strange square off to the side, which is called objective monitoring. Okay, this is an MVI creation. We're the only company known to do this because I'll just say this, it takes a lot to set this up. You have to have all these computer programmer guys and system analysts where we can go into different systems and then pull out the pertinent data, basically the sensitization of your operational systems, and go into your financial systems as well as the benchmarking, all that, and pull this out so that we can provide this objective view of your organization. We don't want to know every person in your organization. We don't want to know them at all. We don't want to see pictures of them. We don't want to know about their families, whatever. Everybody's a number to us. Because if we know about them, it's going to cloud our judgment. It needs to be black and white. And so when we're pulling all this information, processing payroll, the comp system, providing this feedback for people, it just needs to be black and white with no deliberation of, oh, this is going to hurt them or whatever. No, this is the result. And we've got a clever way of doing that. But I'll just say this, when we're pulling stuff, as soon as anything that's non-standard, or that is to the standards of the organization, is detected, a non-wounding email goes out to the person that's responsible, that's accountable for this, and then the supervisor or leader is copied so they know how to coach this person. So they don't have to be the bearer of bad news. They don't have to contemplate all night that, I got to have this big meeting tomorrow. It's already done. And this completely changes or transforms the role of the manager rather than the hard ass come in there and got to reprimand people. No, it's like, I know you got the email. Let me help you. And so it really transforms them into the role of a coach. This is amazing. And that's the org chart. And I would like to add this too. Once you get quality, moving in this world-class direction where you can go thousands of interactions without a single screw-up, a single complaint, all this, you supercharge your comp system because you have to. I don't know anybody that's ever gotten to the 90th percentile statistically as an organization that has not used creative compensation systems. I mean, let's just be blunt about that reality. You're never going to get there if you're just paying hourly and salary. And we got whole books on this and how to do it. But as you increase your quality, you can flatten your indirects, your G&A, whatever you call it, and you can get as flat as a pancake. Because you just don't need that many people in supportive areas. So you can just picture this little pat of butter on top of this pancake, and there's no need for regional supervisors or any layers except for the straight line between really the CEO and the site leaders for, let's say you have 50 locations or whatever across the country. There's no need for anybody in the middle to misinterpret you, to miscommunicate or whatever. You have a direct communication, which is way more efficient, and you save a bunch of money because you just don't need all those extra FTEs. And people could say, well, geez, you're running pretty lean there, Andrew. I mean, what if somebody gets sick or whatever? Well, then we've got a system that's monitored by HR called the 10-2 system. The 10-2 system is basically a pattern that we try to apply to all positions that we can, all your critical positions, billing, AP, whatever operational functions you need. But it's basically this, is that people only work in a certain position for 10 months of the year, and 2 months of the year they have to, non-consecutive months, I should say, they have to work in another position. So you may have your biller that works there for 10 months of the year, but then 2 non-consecutive months they work doing AP or in HR or whatever area of interest that they would like to grow in. And this is tracked. In fact, if this is not required, there's a financial hit that department leaders experience, if they're not doing that, because you always have to have that redundancy in the system. And this 10-2 system does some amazing things. There's at least 4 things, and you might call it cross-training, whatever, building in redundancy. But it does at least 4 things aside from building or empowering a human being by giving them more value as far as their skill levels. First, it obviously provides a backup person. So if someone gets sick or whatever, and so they can carry on this specialized function skill in their absence. Okay, so check that off. Second, because people work in it infrequently or relatively infrequently, only 2 months of the year, and they're not even together, normally this causes the processes to have to be written down. So thus they're documented, which of course satisfies the documentation aspect of standardization. That's good. Okay, 3, it supports the organization's paradigm of being a teaching organization first and foremost. And so there's this school ideology of empowerment and all that. And people like that. And 4th, and I was not expecting this when this system was developed, it breaks the fraud triangle, making fraud and embezzlement much more difficult without collusion. And I remember the first time I put it in at this company, the AP clerk just didn't want to do this system. She's a hard worker, the best worker probably we ever had, And nope, you've got to do it. You need to, change out with Betsy Lou here. And what did we discover? She had embezzled over $500,000. But we were making so much money, we wouldn't even feel that. So it goes a long ways to really breaking up the fraud triangle. Again, making fraud and embezzlement much more unlikely unless there's heavy collusion. And the other thing I'll add to this as we wrap up, I think in all org charts and in designing companies, you never want silly dotted lines or matrix or whatever. You want strict accountability where people only have one leader to directly report to. Because if you do anything outside of that, and I've seen all kinds of screwy situations that makes everything kind of squishy and whatever. No, you got one leader, one mind, one vision to conform with at all your different locations, your sites. That it's that immediate supervisor that, again, provides that 70%. You want direct lines of accountability, because accountability, when you get down to it, is really the determining factor of whether initiatives are accomplished. Accountability is really the difference between success, mediocrity, or failure, you might even say. And ultimately, accountability is where strength in all organizations is built, and we've got messages on that. And I know it's something that has to be taught on a regular basis because people normally recoil from the idea of being held accountable. But if we want to have a mature workforce where everybody does their job, fulfills their function, they've got to get beyond being a victim or live in a world of excuse or blame, because that's not healthy in the body system, in what we're talking about here, this integrated, coherent organization. You can't have cultures of blame and victimhood and, well, no, this is your job. And if it's not done, here are the consequences. If we win, here's the rewards. And it has to be set up like that through the comp system. So you might say this: we use the comp system to a great extent, again, to do the accountability. And with that said, there's some great ideas and multi-view thinking, you might say, of operating an organization as a coherent, integrated whole, where all parts work together.
We hope you are having the best day of your life. If you need something further, just visit one of the Multiview Incorporated websites or contact us through social media. Smoke signals, carrier pigeons, telepathy have not proven reliable. All calls are answered within 3 rings by a competent, real person. Thank you for listening.